Hi, I'm Greg Corombos. My guest at this time is Mark Krikorian. He is the executive director at the Center for Immigration Studies in Washington. While most of the nation's capital is consumed with the impeachment trial, there's also some important policy news coming out of the Trump administration as it concerns immigration, and specifically that the Trump administration is looking to curb birth tourism. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is, how big of an issue it is, and what the administration can actually do about it. And Mark, thanks very much for being with us.
Glad to be here. I'm glad to have something to think about other than the silly impeachment stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, let's first of all define this. I think it's pretty self-evident from the term birth tourism. But essentially, birth tourism is people from other countries timing their visits to the United States so their children can be born in this country and automatically become citizens, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And it's more than just timing it. I mean, it's organized. There are companies that do this in China and Russia and Korea and Turkey and elsewhere, Nigeria, and they often actually own like garden apartments where they put the expectant mothers up and where they wait after giving birth, both to recuperate, but also, most importantly, to wait until their passports for their new babies come through. American passports. And it's one piece of the broader birthright citizenship issue, for instance, children born to illegal immigrants and what have you, but it's the most outrageous and most indefensible part of it, which is why the administration has targeted it first.
Is what those countries are doing, you mentioned China, Russia, Korea, Nigeria, and others, is it actually illegal?
No, it's not, actually, and that's part of the problem, is that coming here in order to give birth, in order to get citizenship for your kid is not illegal. In fact, it's not even, and has not been, at least until this recent change, it has not even been a reason to turn down somebody for a visa. And that's what the administration's trying to change, is the regulations that consular officers, our State Department officers overseas, when interviewing visa applicants, to change the rules so that if it becomes clear that a woman is coming here just to get citizenship for a kid, that she can be turned down for a visa. And that's not going to solve the whole thing, but that's like the first step you have to take, the first crack at limiting this problem.
What can be done unilaterally by the president? What would need congressional action? What's the plan here?
Well, this is definitely something that can be done unilaterally because it's a matter of regulations. It's called the Foreign Affairs Manual, is the name of the body of regs that the State Department operates under. And so what they're doing is just changing that regulation. As far as what Congress can do, it's not clear, short of a constitutional amendment. Congress could presumably pass legislation saying that traveling to the United States or giving birth here if you're on a non-immigrant visa, for instance, you won't get citizenship, your child won't get citizenship. But that will immediately be challenged and end up going to the Supreme Court. In a sense, the thing I would kind of like the president to do in order to spark the lawsuit, to take it to the Supreme Court, would be to instruct the State Department to actually turn down passport applications from parents who don't have Social Security numbers for their, passport applications for newborn babies. If the parents don't have a Social Security number, which all legal immigrants and citizens do, that would immediately be challenged in court, but that would put in motion the lawsuit that eventually would end up before the Supreme Court.
Mark, from the reports I've read on the administration's plans, there don't seem to be any hard numbers on how many babies are born under these circumstances in the United States each year. ABC News has a contributor named John Cohen who says, quote, "They're embellishing the national security implications dramatically. Portraying birth tourism as a top-tier national security issue is dishonest." So what numbers, if any, do we have, and where is it in the pecking order of things that need to be addressed in your estimation when it comes to tightening up immigration?
My group, the Center for Immigration Studies, is the only people who've tried to come up with an estimate. And our estimate is that 33,000 babies a year are born to people who are birth tourists. There's actually something like 10 times that many born to illegal immigrant women, but they actually live here, and the kids grow up here. The reason this is so outrageous is that people are literally here only for a couple months, and the child never goes to American schools, is never socialized as an American, is in every respect Chinese or Russian or Nigerian, but has this passport that enables him to come and go to the United States anytime he wants. And that is the national security angle. Obviously, there's all kinds of other issues involved in national security, but if you're a foreign intelligence service, the ideal person for you is someone who is completely socialized into your system. They've gone to Chinese schools, they've learned, imbibed all the Russian propaganda, the Turkish propaganda, whatever it is that they spent their entire life being exposed to. But they get to go to the United States anytime they want as a U.S. citizen and enroll in any school and get any kind of job open to U.S. citizens, government jobs, whatever. So, is it the most important national security threat to the United States? Obviously not. But there are lots of places that we need tightening up, whether it's immigration policy or security policy, and this is one of them where the two overlap.
Let's go to the larger issue here, Mark, and I think you addressed this a little bit in a previous answer, but in this ABC News story, Ken Cuccinelli, the former head of Citizenship and Immigration Services and now number 2 at Homeland Security, said that he doesn't believe, this is from October, that you don't need a constitutional amendment to change birthright citizenship. He says it's just a matter of whether it's congressional action or executive action that needs to be taken. Do you agree with that?
Well, as a practical matter, no, and not because I'm giving a constitutional ruling. Just so people understand, the 14th Amendment says anyone born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a citizen. This is a post-Civil War amendment. The whole point was to keep the reorganized southern states from stripping citizenship from newly freed black slaves. Well, that qualification, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, has been taken to mean only two groups of people who give birth here, but the kids don't get citizenship. One would be Indians who were not U.S. citizens, because back then, if you were on a reservation, you weren't a citizen. Well, that was all changed in the 20s. Everybody living on a reservation is U.S. citizen. The other exception are children of diplomats, people with diplomatic immunity. What we have done, the practice we have had, and there's never been a ruling on this. The practice is, even if you're an illegal alien, even if you're a tourist, even if you're a foreign student, if you give birth here, that kid is automatically a citizen. And so as a practical matter, whether it's Congress that passes legislation or the president who issues an executive order, it's going to end up being the Supreme Court who's going to decide it, unless you get a constitutional amendment, which is extremely unlikely and isn't going to happen. That was my point about the president can just get the ball rolling. Now, the Supreme Court could rule the other way and say, no, this is what this provision means. It is ambiguous. It's unclear. And if they come down on the side of everybody automatically getting citizenship, well, at least we'll know. And then we'll know that only through a constitutional amendment would we be able to fix that problem.
Mark, a lot to chew on as always, and we've just scratched the surface as usual. Thank you, sir, very much for your time today. We greatly appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Mark Krikorian is Executive Director at the Center for Immigration Studies. I'm Greg Corombos reporting for Radio America.